Hi guys, welcome to a video documenting the curved top construction for the Defiants Indiana 2019 build. My name is Keith. I'm going to go through some of the tools that I'm using here to get this done. So first and foremost, let's talk about the router. So this up top is a Whiteside 1093 straight cut bit. It's 1 inch with cutting blades on the top and sides. And this is the MLCS 9464 collet extension for 1/2 inch bits. Now you'll see a little bit later why I needed this, but had to get that rush delivered. Let's take a look at the setup here. Alright, so we've got a whole lot of clamps set up on this cabinet here. Without any of those clamps, looks a little bit more like that at the start. Focus, there we go. So flat top and sides at the moment. Sides are curved, top and bottom are flat. But we're going to put a curve on that. It's going to go from the front down the sides to somewhere around in there. So in order to accomplish that, I need to use my router, and I need to use a curved template to make that happen. So this piece right here, both of those runners are my curved template. That's going to give my router something to slide across as I make the cut. Now, I had to set this up pretty tall because the top is going to be my flat surface. That's not going to have a curve. It's going to start there and radius slowly back. But I needed to set this up really tall because I did not step the material down on the outside. I only stepped it on the inside. So this piece right here is almost at the same height as the template pieces, which is a problem if you can't actually clear your sled on the back side. So this whole setup is actually in 2 pieces. I've got this back piece down here set up just to give myself something to clamp the back piece to the front piece, and it also provides me with an arm to rest the back end of these templates on. And I've clamped a little bit of a reminder stop back here so my sled doesn't slide clear off the back of this and then tilt forward. So looking at the front, so it's just clamped on the bottom here. We've got these 2 arms on the sides that are coming up. We've got this piece that's holding it all together, and then I've got some space in the side there for the router bit to cut all the way to the edge of the cabinet. And then I had to stick these pieces on the front so the sled can come beyond the front of the cabinet there and still make the cut clear off to the front and get the radius that I want. Now the sled itself is way bigger than it needs to be for this project. I actually made this for my Jedi Mind Tricks Translam subwoofers that did a curved top as well. Those are about 1.5 feet, 2 foot wide, so I needed a really long arm length to make sure that I was supporting the router base throughout that whole length of cut. Let me put this up on the router, on the template. It looks a little something like this. So you get this piece sits on top and slides down the back and back forward. So I'm just going to inch this thing a little bit over at a time, incrementing my cut as I go. I'm also going to have to take very small bites, starting back here, just nibbling off a little bit at a time until I can get to a comfortable cutting depth for the rest of the cabinet. So it's going to take a bit of work, but I think the results are going to be worth it. A bit of words on the router bit again. So you have to be careful when you're using a collet extension. You can't take too deep of a cut and you can't push it too hard. Like everything in life, this is a physics problem. There's a big old lever arm, and you're putting all the stress down here where all of the bending wants to happen as you contact a piece of wood. So that's happening even with a standard router bit. There's a little bit of force that you're applying here. Now that the bit is way up here, you're just multiplying that force. So you really have to be careful not to crank on this too hard, otherwise you'll damage the bit, damage the router, won't be any good. Okay, so be smart. Don't do this too hard. Got our safety equipment ready to go. I'm gonna load the router up and get ready for the actual start of cut. Be right back. All right, guys, I've got the router set up. I now have everything chucked up. Got the router extension in there. The bit is protruding underneath of the sled here. I want to show you how I have this set up. So the first thing I have to worry about is making sure that I can clear the back. So with this router set to 0 plunge, this is as tall as I can get it. I adjusted the body of the router, the motor, inside of the plunge base to the right height so that I could achieve this. When the bit is all the way back there, I just barely clear the top of the cabinet. It's kind of hard to see that with the camera angle, but there's maybe 2 or 3 millimeters of clearance back there between the top of the bit and the top of the cabinet. So I want that so that I can take very, very shallow plunges and start eating away at that radius. Now on the flip side, when I get all the way back to the front, what I want to make sure I'm doing is using my turrets. So right now I'm set on the very topmost turret, but if I put that all the way on the bottom turret, right there, and plunge this thing all the way down, I'm gonna need 2 hands for this, hang on. There we go. So I've plunged this as far as I can get it. I've locked it in place hard. That bit is right at the top of that curve, which is where I want it to finish. Okay, focus, there we go. So now that I have this set up, all I have to do is start eating away at the cabinet. I can set this on the highest turret to start with, and as I slowly work my way down to actually needing the turret, I can take a pass with the turret, I can reset, I can turn my turret a little bit and go back until I'm just going to eat my way all the way down these steps until I get all the way to the top here. That's how this is going to work. Yeah, it's going to take some time, but that's how we got to do it. All right, I'm going to set back up on my fancy tripod here because, everybody's shop tripod looks like this, right? Toolbox, some cinder blocks, and a universal edge guide router and mortise jig. Why not? Okay. Safety first. Gonna get set up here. Be right back. Okay, guys, I thought of a few other things that I neglected to mention up front. First, let's talk about these quick strips here. So this piece of wood on the back and up there on the front are secured to my spoil board. This one's got screws, that one's got clamps. The idea is to keep the entire cabinet from being able to slide forward or backwards as I'm pushing the router on there. Probably wouldn't happen, but I don't want to be caught off guard anyways. So we've got that. Got our focus. Got our dust collection set up there. So that'd be the first time we're using the router with the dust collection going all the way through the hose, back up into the trunk, up and over, and eventually back to there. So hopefully that works out well. I'll still be wearing a dust mask. All right, last point before we really and truly get started. So you can use a piece of wood clamped between these 2 rails and snugged up to the side of your template to keep everything moving straight down the line. I've done that in the past. It works great. It is kind of time consuming, especially for something this small. You'd be stopping every few seconds, changing the clamp position, scooting the thing over and keeping going. What that does for you, if you can, let's see if this works. If the sled is, perpendicular, 90 degrees to your runners, then everything is in good contact. You got 4 points of contact and things are smooth. However, if you start to rock side to side, say if I suddenly turn this thing towards the left, now my back is not contacting anymore and the thing can rock. And that's not good. So that piece of wood will help you avoid that rocking. I'm going to do it freehand. I feel confident doing that. I'm going to have 2 hands up here at all times, making sure that I keep even pressure on both sides. That I pull it back towards me. All of my cuts are going to be made on a pole so that it's not a climb cut, because I don't want this thing to just take off and shoot forward. So all of the, I'm gonna be cutting on the stroke coming towards me. So, for real this time, back to the tripod, and here we go. time I spent doing this, but we have completed the curve all the way down the cabinet. In the process, made my workshop an absolute mess at the same time. Tried to use the shop vac, tried to use the dust collector. The whole setup really isn't great for collecting dust, as you'll see in a second. Let's get a closer look here. So I put this together requiring extra layers to make sure I had enough material thickness on the way through. And you can see those layers here. There's the back, one layer, get the dividing line there, 2 layers of the dividing line, and top layer. So the curve is nice and smooth, going all the way up. Take a look at it from the other side to bring my lifeline with me. See that curve going all the way down. It's in good shape. Nice and flat. A little bit of light sanding, and this will be ready for some veneer. So that looks good. The rest of the shop was already messy, but good gracious. Nice coating of dust everywhere. All the tools. I had to clean up just a little bit before videoing this. You can see, door 1 versus door 2. And that was absolutely invisible. There's dust all over the place. I'll have to measure the other cabinet before I do this to get a before and after, but if I had a trustworthy method of removing material, I would definitely try to get rid of some of that before going with the router, just to make so I don't have to make a million little bites at it. So, all right, that's been my video on covering or taking care of the router curve. So hopefully that helped, and see you guys later. Thanks.